Maayong buntag, kumusta? I hope you're doing fine. In this lesson, we'll explore triangulation. Triangulation, according to the study, has been generally acknowledged as a method for improving the analysis and understanding of action research data. In particular, triangulation has shown to be an excellent technique for analyzing and corroborating data in evaluation, survey, observation, and other forms of monitoring. The purpose of this orientation is to provide background information to think clearly and ask good questions about different ways to do triangulation. Imagine you're lost in the woods or in a busy street, but you get different maps such as Apple Maps, Google, and Bing Maps. It points to a certain location like this, and the convergence of three types of maps is where triangulation comes in. This is the same metaphor we use in action research. What are your comments on our students' performance in the new normal? In one of the occasions, there are those teacher who shares that our students are under challenge. They submit reports just for compliance. They are unproductive. Some observe that students are financially challenged to have internet access. There are those with students who are participating in online classes. They are meeting expectation. Some are coping. Some also observe mediocre output from students. Question: how do they get this information? Well, we can create a graph like this. This can be through observation of interaction, analysis of work, interview with students, and by this we can triangulate that these are the performance of the students. We shall deal more on triangulation later. Why triangulate? Why do we have to do triangulation? There are several reasons. Eliminates bias, produces consistent and convergent results. According to Phillips and Carr, it increases trustworthiness. For this lesson, we'll focus on the third reason by Phillips and Carr. It increases trustworthiness. How does triangulation increases trustworthiness in teacher education? Or how does triangulation increases trustworthiness in action research? We'll take up these different criteria of trustworthiness. There is evidence of becoming. Interpretation should illustrate the process of becoming a teacher. Is this transparent in your work? Is this transparent in your action research? Does your action research demonstrate critical thinking, problem solving, growing or living of teaching, living knowledge of teaching and researching? If there is evidence of becoming, then it increases trustworthiness. Second, trustworthy interpretation demonstrates self-reflexivity. Do you do self-reflection? Can the reader identify how have you changed? Are you transparent in identifying paradigms, biases, assumptions, as well as new theories of teaching and learning? If you demonstrate self-flexibility, then it increases trustworthiness. Third criterion, trustworthy interpretation seek multiple perspectives. Does your work reflect perspective of participants, your mentor, your university advisor, and supervisor? Do you have thick data to illustrate your themes and recommendations? If you have multiple perspectives, then it increases trustworthiness. Another criteria or criterion, strong sense of connection. Interpretation should make strong sense of connection between cultural context of the classroom, the school, and community. It connects distant colleagues and it also illustrates your connection of your journey of becoming a teacher. Is this sense of connection tangible in your study? Have you relied on distant colleagues to frame your interpretation to support your own lack of experience? Strong sense of connection increases trustworthiness. And the fifth criterion, trustworthy interpretation result in meaningful action. How does the knowledge and meaning derived from your action research project make you wiser and more insightful as a teacher? Do the results demonstrate a future teacher or a teacher who has the abilities and disposition to continually study and reframe practice? How is this study meaningful to students, the school community, or the community at large? Does your work represent a good practice? Meaningful action increases trustworthiness. We shall now move to types of triangulation. This is according to Dinsin in 1970. According to Philip Sankar, in their triangulation, they use this concept from qualitative research and apply it in teacher education. These types of triangulation include the following: data, investigator, theory, and methodological triangulation. We shall discuss each. Data triangulation, this is gathering of data through differing sampling strategies, such as collecting data in different contexts, like in home, in school. It can be at different times, like before studying, before transferring, or before the intervention, during and after intervention. And these are also data from different people, such as data from family, from teacher, or from friends. In data triangulation, you need to remember three things: context, time, and people. Investigator triangulation refers to more than one investigator, interviewer, observer. Like for example, in this case, in one class, there might be uh, four investigators to look at the scenario. It is particularly important for decreasing bias in data gathering, reporting, and or analyzing data, because they will have to discuss their finding and um, arrive at a consensus. Another triangulation is theory triangulation. The use of multiple theories or hypotheses in examining a situation or phenomenon. The idea look at the situation at different perspective. Example, using interpretivism and feminism and certain method in an attempt to improve reliability and validity. The fourth type of triangulation is method triangulation. This refers to the use of multiple methods to study a situation, like observation, interview, and archival data. The intention is to decrease deficiencies and biases that came from a single method. Example, if you have interview data, you can triangulate with photo, video, observation, and then if there is consistent result, then you can report based on method. If there is inconsistent, then there should be further inquiry. For example, identify if what kind of triangulation is this. Sample 1, we collected data from all 5 stakeholder groups, discipline, um, that are involved in collecting and testing rape kits, investigating and prosecuting sexual assault crimes, and providing services to victims, including police, prosecution, forensic science, crime laboratory, nursing, and victim services. We sought other avenues for obtaining survivors' perspective in action research project. So we'll identify who are involved, 5 stakeholders. This is people and group disciplines that are involved in collecting the kits. Since this involves people, this is data collection, data triangulation, I mean. In this next example, we use qualitative ethnographic observation, interviews, and archival records that were qualitatively and quantitatively coded. What kind of triangulation is this? Let's examine. This use observation, interviews, and archival records. These are methods, so this is methodological triangulation. Another example, these are from Campbell et al. 2020. We use qualitative ethnographic observation, qualitative interviews, records that were qualitatively and quantitatively coded. For the qualitative observational and interview data, we included high-level leadership and frontline practitioner from each stakeholder group, as well as current and former employees. The data were reasonably well distributed across stakeholders groups, interviews, and archival record within each stakeholder group and across all stakeholder groups. Let's examine the study use observation, quantitative interviews, records. So this is a method that were qualitatively and quantitatively coded. They use observational and interview data, that's method, and include high-level leadership. This is people, frontline practitioner from each stakeholder. So in this example, this is a mix, or this is a blend of method, and people refers to data. So this is a blend of method and data triangulation. Another example from Clark and Jasso, 2014, the interviews of students came from diaries they keep while in the field, and they also respond to general questions about the program. The interviews of the staff and host communities came from questionnaires given to individuals selected from both groups. To allow comparison among 3 parties, the same key topics were covered in the questionnaire for the students, staff, and host communities. The topics were derived from discussion with UDS staff and from literature on participatory action research and group projects. The use of questionnaire rather than less structured interviews ensured that views of all parties could be compared on the same set of views of all parties. Issues which is the essence of triangulation. Alright, let's examine. They are taking views from students. So this is people, From diaries, this is method. While they keep in the field and they also respond to general question about program. The view of the staff and host communities, these are people. From questionnaire, this is method. Allow comparison among three parties, this refers to people covered in questionnaires from the study of staff and host community. So in this example, this involves people, so that is data triangulation, and then there are also a blend of using questionnaire, that's method. So in this example, this is a blend of data and method triangulation. All right, so how can we use triangulation in this scenario? This is Joey. He's not participative and the grade is declining. What will you do? Can you help Joey in this scenario using triangulation? If this is the same scenario in your school, then perhaps you have done the same, or if not yet, you may be able to solve using the triangulation method. Well, this is a good practice to do triangulation. There are certain limits. While triangulation is a good practice, there are certain limits of doing triangulation. These include the following. It adds to the complexity of the research, so it is more time consuming, especially for beginners. Researchers may not adequately explain the techniques of blending the results. Comparison of findings becomes sometimes inconsistent or conflicting. The processes are complex, so triangulation requires skilled analysts. Ika nga, practice makes perfect. So the more you do it, the more you become skilled analyst. The value of triangulation may be overestimated in some studies. Thank you for listening. So these are the sources that I've mentioned in this study. I hope this lesson provides an insight of the use of triangulation and the type of triangulation in action research.